Welcome to War Thunder with Subdude. How y'all doing today? Well, I want to talk about a topic that should be near and dear to every pilot's heart as far as ammunition loadouts, especially for ground attack. Now, a lot of you that play realistic battles alongside me are probably going, I'm only a fighter, Jock. Nothing applies to me. I'm like, well, yeah, it kind of does. Because a lot of you guys that play realistic battles alongside me also play tanks and get into ground attack. And as things progress and we start getting more and more advanced equipment, it should make a big difference to you, especially when we're dealing with planes like the Matra 2A pictured on the screen, the G91s, both of them, the Oregon and Baragon and the Mystere 2C, as well as any future developments as far as British and German planes go. And the reason is the Matra rocket pods, which are used on the French and Italian planes. Now, some people are going to go, well, what does that have to do with things I should be concerned with because they're just a bunch of rocket pods? Well, there's a lot to be concerned with. Mainly because the rocket pods that we currently have in game are wrong. Now, somebody's going to go, you don't know what you're talking about. You know, you need to do your research better. Okay. Let's take a look. The Matra rocket pod was used in numerous places. Many nations use them. And there are actually 3 different versions of the Matra rocket pod. One pod, which is what we have depicted in the game, has a frangible nose and tail cone, which is exactly what these Matra rocket pods have. But when you hit the fire button, it ripple fires all the rockets. And what happens is you fire once and every 0.3 seconds another rocket goes. So you can basically flood an area with rockets. Now, they might be armor-piercing rockets. They might be high explosive rockets. But that is a disposable rocket pod. And what happens after all those rockets are unleashed, the rocket pod falls off. It's released and it frees up the airframe. Now there's another rocket pod, and this one has a nose, basically to to streamline the pod, even if after it's fired. It doesn't have a frangible nose like the indicated pods that we have. And it fires another 19 rockets. However, this one, with the streamlined nose built onto it, also is programmable on the ground. You can pre-program it to fire one missile at a time or to salvo the missiles, just like the previous pod. However, this one is a reusable pod. This one will hang on the aircraft unless the aircraft itself drops it. You have to actively drop it if you want to free up your airframe. And then they built a third rocket pod. And that third rocket pod actually built in, it was either 125 or 66 gallons of fuel for the aircraft. So it was a rocket pod slant fuel tank, which again, they could drop the rocket pod slant fuel tank to free up the airframe for air-to-air combat. Or, in the case of something like the Votur 2A, to go faster, to go home. Now, you may wonder, well, where did you get this information? Well, let me show you. Where are you? There you are. Wikipedia. Wikipedia, I know some of you are going, it isn't a reliable source. Well, it may not be completely 100% reliable all the time, but 99% of the time, it gets it within the ballpark. And as you can see, the Matra Type 116M rocket launcher is a disposable rocket launcher. It basically fires all the rockets and then falls off the aircraft. The next one, which is the reusable Type 115 rocket launcher, widely produced and reusable. It also had a fluted nose cone through which the rocket projectiles, RPs, were fired. That's what gave it the streamline effect. And the last one, which is the JL100 drop tank rocket pack, is unique and very much probably never going to see in the game. So what has to happen here, or should happen, is the weapon system for Gaijin needs to be readjusted. Now, are they going to do that? I have no idea. But it's something that needs to be looked into. Now, I'm just one person, and if I can find this, and the reason I found it is because I was really kind of bent out of shape over how much airspeed is lost by having these rocket pods on, as opposed to 750 or 1,000-pound bombs, which are bigger than these rocket pods, which should slow the plane down even more. And these rocket pods are not jettisonable. Because, hey, if I'm going to lose as much speed, and here's what we're losing in speed, 338 kilometers an hour. You know what that means? That means an F2H or a F3D can chase me down. Because I've got rocket pods on? Spare me. That's a joke. That's a bad joke. So, Gaijin needs to spend a little time to reevaluate the rocket pods. You don't see them losing as much airspeed with Russian rocket pods as you do with these Matra rocket pods. If you don't believe me, check it out yourself. I mean, the Italians, let's see, let's get the pre-series because I've spaded the pre-series. Let's go take a look at modifications for the pre-series. And with the rocket pod on board, you lose 86.4 kilometers an hour. Off from a top speed of 1,078 kilometers an hour, we're pulled to under 900 kilometers an hour. Which honestly isn't a bad thing with the pre-series because it will rip its wings if it goes too fast in level flight at sea level. Even though it says it can do 1,078 miles or kilometers an hour at sea level. So, this is something that needs to be looked at, and Gaijin has done a pretty good job of ignoring it. And I understand why they're ignoring it, because it means having to actually go through and do some programming on their weapons when they're too concentrated on what is the next biggest rifle caliber gun that they can put on their Soviet tank or Abrams or whatever. Personally, I don't care about tanks whatsoever. They've moved into the realm of stupid. But aircraft, I take an interest in that. And right now, they're breaking their own game. Not badly, but breaking it nonetheless. With the increased amount of drag that they're giving to these rocket pods, and the fact that you can't drop them off and you can't ripple fire the rockets. It should be just a simple punch of the button and a couple of square acres gets completely blasted. Which, if you're coming in and ripping up an airfield, wouldn't be a bad thing. Be able to actually rip up the facilities at an airfield rather than just putting bombs on the runway, which should be the way that airfields are taken out anyhow. But that's another story, and someday we may actually get around to having that discussion with Gaijin because they really don't want to talk about it. But that's about all I got. This Subdude signing out. Y'all have a pleasant today, a better tomorrow, and we will catch you in the skies because I'll be darned if you're going to catch me driving a tank. And not a ship either. Bye-bye, folks.